all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Keep the palms down. Good morning, everybody. And we're here for the first time. What brings you here now that I've first time here, but not first time here? What brings you here if you're here for the first time? Now that I put you on the spot and had you raise your hands.
We're here for the summer right now doing research, and I sometimes go to meditation centers, and I haven't had the chance to go for a while, so
Nice.
I wanted to come today and have you go along with me.
Right on. You got dragged along.
Yeah.
You're not researching us, are you? Because it would be fascinating if you were. Yeah. This room will keep you busy of research for like 30 years. Yeah. Where are you here from?
I'm from Boston.
Nice.
I'm from Tennessee.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the Dharma Bell Temple. Anyone else here for the first time want to share why? Yeah.
I'm here to develop more compassion, especially for myself. Quiet that monkey mind.
That's it, right? We should have all of that taken care of in the next 45 minutes. One-stop shop, don't worry. But we hear that a lot, and that's a core reason a lot of us get into practice. But what do you think that means when you say develop self-compassion? Because it's a common theme. Like, what does that mean to you?
It means if your voice is really negative, I'm really harsh on myself. I want to stop doing that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for expressing that. Anyone else in here harsh on themselves? Your research has begun. What else? Anybody here want to share why? Or anyone who's always here want to share why? Yeah.
I've known you for years, and this is the first time I've been here.
Yeah.
So it's just like, the time is right.
Yeah.
We're all supposed to be in this room together in this moment. For whatever reason, it's just, It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, glad you're back. Glad you're here. Anyone else want to share why they're here? Yeah.
I've been coming for a week and a half, and I already got the effects in my life. Think nicer where I am. Kind of not angry, but somebody did something. It's easier to forgive
Mm-hmm. So in a week, you're already seeing yourself less angry.
change.
Yeah.
I hope it's not rigorous.
Yes. Well, no, I'll just leave it at that. That's beautiful. Keep practicing. Yeah. It's not beginner's luck. When we're really angry and we start this path, we go from really angry very quickly. We can go to just kind of angry sometimes, right? And that gap, there's a huge distance between really angry and just kind of sometimes angry. And when you can live in that place of sometimes angry, That's then where it requires just endless, ongoing, consistent practice, right? So the drastic shift you saw for the first week, you might not see that drastic shift second or third week. Does that make sense? But you want to maintain the just kind of angry versus really angry. Is that helpful? Yeah, so you're headed in the right direction. That's good. Anyone else before we start with meditation? Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to sort of, everything just sort of makes sense. When I started reading like Introduction to Buddhism,
Yeah.
it just makes sense. And the more I got involved with reading different things, I realized that I think in order for me specifically to like end suffering, I need to like get rid of the ego.
Yeah.
But not completely, because part of like some ego is good. And you told me that. And like it's paid dividends just in the past couple months of doing this. Like I told you, someone cut me off in the morning after I did like a 45-minute meditation. Then I was driving to work. Someone cut me off, and I was just like, go right ahead.
Okay. So you wouldn't normally done that?
Dude, I'm not from here. I get really pissed off.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And there's a chance, like you said, that you might not always say just go right ahead, right? And so the challenge now is to recognize that if and when that does happen, to then talking about self-compassion, what can often happen when we begin kind of meditation or looking at Buddhist teachings is you've read some stuff, so you have an idea of kind of this, mindset that you want to carry, which is very different from the mindset you've carried. So if there is a moment where somebody cuts you off and you hadn't just done your meditation and you default back to what you normally would have done, the practice then is to recognize, oh, wow, I shouldn't have done that. But not to then apply, oh, I'm failing, the self-hatred, the I can't do this stuff, just to recognize, yep, I should have probably responded differently. Because that'll happen, and so to not put so much pressure on ourselves, which I see a lot, especially if you're new to practice, to not judge it, but just to be aware of it. So that's great. All right, so was there another hand? I thought I saw a hand, but if not, yeah, go ahead.
I kind of started to have this with my therapist when I was living with my father, who's now in memory care in San Diego, but he's doing great, but it also depends on me being present, being radically acceptance, all those things. To be there for him, I need to work on me.
Right.
And I know it's allowed him to blossom there and do well, but a lot depends on how I am with me. And of course, it does affect other parts of my life, but it started with being there for my father.
Yeah,
At all times, you have to be present when you're with someone like that.
for sure. Yeah, thank you. Glad you're here. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and we'll sit. For those who are maybe here for the first time or sitting for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away, most likely. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. We judge things all day long, what we look like, what we wear, what we eat. We're constantly in these judgment modes. And this practice is learning to go beyond judgment and just abide in sensation of breath. Don't expect anything. If you're sitting there waiting for some grand aha moment or some deep realizations, you're going to leave probably pretty disappointed. So just learn to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture. If you're on the cushions, often it helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed, hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on the benches or chairs, also just trying to sit up straight, shoulders relaxed. Trying to remain still, but if you need to move, it's not the end of the world. Simply scratch your arm, come back to stillness or whatever it may be. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. We'll be done in about 6 hours. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice. Observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, turn attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from your practice. Just sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. With the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where we come from, or what we believe in, and where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. more stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every single day. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you feel every other 20 minutes of your life, or 20 moments. This practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. It's not closing your eyes and pretending you're sailing down a river and looking at all the birds and trees and flowers. Life can be a mess. Meditation is learning to be present within that mess. Meditation doesn't fix things, it doesn't solve all your problems, but it slows you down so you can learn to actually look at things clearly, not wrapped up in anger and emotion and pride and ego, which is where we operate from most of the time. I don't know about you, but that didn't work for me. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. That's why it's easy. We just have to be nice to every single person who ever cuts us off the rest of our lives. That's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to everyone around us, life gets simpler. But if we continue to operate from a place of hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they do this, wishing they would do that, if we continue to operate from a place of thinking we know what's best for everybody in the world around us, then we're going to continue to suffer tremendously. Because the world is never going to operate the way you want it to. It's hard enough for us to get us to do the things that we want to do. But somehow we fixate on so much of everything around us and everyone around us. So I think I'd much rather just open up to questions. As always, I prefer to really address what's on your mind. Use that as a place to start. So anything with meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address. Yeah.
Just quickly, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I do feel better. I do feel the difference.
That's it. Done. Never have to come back. See, I was wrong. I told you to take 45 minutes. I was like 25 minutes, 36 minutes. You're totally healed. So here's the thing, and I appreciate that. I hate to jump to bad news and shatter kind of the, this moment, but the feeling you have right now, much better than how you normally feel, right? How long do you think this feeling is going to last? 5 minutes, 20 minutes, because the moment you walk outside these doors, did you drive here? The moment you get in your car, go back to where you're going, that world out there, they didn't just finish their meditation. They don't care that you finished yours. They don't know who you are, and they really don't care about you. So that's where the challenge and practice begins. And I know you're brand new to this, so that's why I'm cutting straight to the heart of the practice. This is the easy part, an important part, but this is the easy part. The challenge is now, can we bring our practice into every other area of our life? When it comes to what you brought up earlier about having self-compassion, self-love, self-care, this will do a lot of good for that. And then we work to bring it into other areas of our lives. And that requires patience, it requires diligence, it requires effort, because the feeling that we have now, like I said, will go away. But how do we get that feeling back? And if you think about it, we spend most of our lives seeking, craving, desiring, chasing, spending money, spending time, spending everything. Craving, desire, something to bring us a sense of peace and happiness and calm. It's how we're conditioned to be. I have this, if I get this, if I go here, if this person's in my life, if that person does this, we're constantly seeking, craving, desire, and external. You just sat still and did absolutely nothing for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden everything's great. So there's where you learn to find a balance, because you're not going to sit still and do nothing the rest of your life, right? This practice isn't about sitting still and doing nothing. We will get a lot done. You will get a lot done in your life. You will accomplish a lot. You have responsibilities, you have family, you have friends, you have things to get done. You have research to do. You know, the question is, can you do all of those things and be just, productive and successful and motivated, but with a mind that's steady and clear and not disturbed? So, thanks for sharing that. Other thoughts or questions? Meditation, Buddhist practice. Yeah, I see a hand all the way in the back there.
So, do you ever find when you're meditating that your mind keeps trying to go to the same thought or place over and over again, no matter how many times you try to be present? And is it traditionally considered more, I think the phrase is right-minded, to resist that, or to just let your mind do what it wants?
So, if I heard the question correctly, does your mind tend to go to the same place over and over and over again during meditation? And is it traditional to allow it to go there or to bring it back? Is that your question? Okay. A couple ways to look at this. It's not about, to me, the practice is not about whether your mind goes to the same place over and over and over again, or whether it goes to different places over and over and over again. It's the fact that it's going somewhere over and over and over again. And the practice is to bring it back every single time, right? That's it. Even when we say, and I'll kind of expand on that briefly, even when we say it keeps going to the same place over and over, it's not. It goes to maybe a topic, maybe a theme, maybe, a physical location. But as it jumps to that, then it jumps to something else about that, and then something else about that, and then something else about that. So while it's very easy for us to say, my mind keeps going to the Chicago Cubs every thought, well, it would jump to different things about the Cubs. Who are they going to trade? Who are they going to pick up? Are they going to, what time's the game today? Actually, I know the answer to that, but, it jumps. Even if we say it's one thing, it's many things within that one thing. So I want to clarify that, because regardless of what I say back to you, your mind for many years is still going to jump. So at least begin to recognize it's not jumping to the same thing. It's actually like frogs on a lily pad, or, kids running around the meditation hall. They jump from cushion to cushion to cushion. Your mind is jumping from thought to thought to thought to thought, even if it is all about the Cubs, right? So ultimately, what the practice is to abandon all of that. And so here's what's going on during meditation, roughly, right? I've been doing this. I started 24 years ago, been doing it every day for 16 years. My mind still races, it's still a mess. Okay, so I'm sitting here and breathing. Breath in, breath out. Thought arises. Hunger. Recognize that thought of hunger. Release it. Come back to the breath. Breath in, breath out. Another thought arises. Hunger. Recognize the thought of hunger. Release it. Come back to the breath. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm training my mind to do. I'll talk about that in a minute, to be present. Okay? What I don't want to do, thought arises. Hunger. Now I've internalized this thought. I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? I'm going to go to Poke's. I want a burrito. I want chips. I want sauce. I want water, right? Next thing you know, from one single thought of hunger, I'm sitting there for 5 minutes thinking about a burrito I want to eat. And now I'm probably hungrier than I was 5 minutes ago. Now, why is this important? You ever been angry about something for 5 minutes or 5 years? Yeah. The thing that you're angry about from 5 years ago, when did it happen? 5 years ago. And when you think about it day in and day out, it is happening over and over and over again. Right? I'm not a fan of the phrase, let it go. It happened. You can't change it, no matter how much you want to. look at it when you want, look at it when you need to, learn from it, have whatever experience you want with from things that happened in the past. But training the mind allows you to actually appreciate and be in this moment. Because as long as you're wrapped up in all the crap from the past that you can't change, you're missing an opportunity to enjoy and appreciate and have gratitude and find beauty in this moment. Everyone in this room is going through their own levels of trauma, miserable experiences, heartbreak, sad, we've all been there. And some of us will spend our entire lives reliving that pain over and over. And that's painful. And the challenge is can we learn to appreciate, here I am right now? And the meditation is training not to become a good meditator. It's training so when your life happens and you start to have the thought about the thing that's going to send the next 3 weeks of your life into a complete hell, you can actually recognize that thought, no different than any other thought, and come back to the breath. Right? The Buddha's teaching very specifically in breathing in and taking a short breath, know you're taking a short breath. Breathing out, taking a long breath, know you're taking a long breath. That's it. Nothing to ponder, nothing to solve, nothing to figure out. Just sit and attempt to stay focused on sensation of breath. It's like the game tug of war, Just yank back and forth. Come back to present moment is the practice. That make sense? Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Right now I'm grappling with, because I like to keep busy, what to do with, I keep it with empty time. My biggest fear actually is when I have nothing to do. I don't know, I'm just afraid to be alone, I'm afraid I won't be my thoughts. For me, that's a scary place.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
How far do you live from here?
About 20 minutes.
You like being outside?
No, not really.
You like being inside?
Yes.
All right. Anytime you're afraid to be alone and don't know what to do, drive here. I'll give you a broom and you can sweep. It is the greatest Buddhist practice. I say that partially jokingly and partially serious, right? My master always said, Jeff, busy is the best nutrition. When we sit silently for 20 minutes, what are we left with? Ourselves. What are we often trying to run away from and afraid of? Ourselves. So we want to stay busy. We want to stay occupied. If that's something you need to do for a while until you learn to be with yourself, then great. But do things that are productive. Do things that are wholesome. Do things that are healthy. I mean, often in many cultures, but I don't want to get too far down this path, but it's like, oh, I'm so busy. Not really. We waste a lot of time for people who say they're so busy, We have a lot of time of doing nothing that we fill with mindless things that don't bring us any sort of wholesome feelings. So my suggestion early on, if you're new to the practice, is not for one to torture themselves in endless bouts of silence, but to recognize this is a moment where I have nothing to do and I don't like being alone. What is something I can go do that is productive? Go help somebody. You don't like being outside, but go to a parking lot, an underground shopping center, and help people carry their bags to their car. There are people every day out in this world that need your help. But as long as you're focused on, oh, poor me, what am I going to do with all my poor free time? You know whose suffering and misery you're going to focus on? Your own. I had great teachers early on, and they said, Jeff, stop thinking about yourself. The question is, how many of us show up here today because we want to make sure everybody else is healthy and happy? We're here to fix us. That is not the path, as I understand it. It's to be of benefit to all sentient beings. And in that moment, you've helped a lot of people in your life at times, right? And when you help them, how do you feel? Phenomenal. Pretty awesome. Keep helping more people in any way you can, right? As soon as you feel down, just Kind of use that as a trigger. What can I go do that's positive, productive, and helpful for somebody else? Take yourself out of you. Because as long as you focus on you, we know that's what ended us all up here on Saturday at 11 o'clock, myself included. You know? Does that help? Yeah, it's not easy to do. Because in that moment of feeling miserable, we don't want to go help somebody. We think it's all about us. But it's really not. We often think that we are the most important person in the world. And if we can take ourselves out of that and recognize that somebody else needs your help, you'll feel better. Most people don't help people and feel worse. I don't see too many reports on that. Study shows helping people makes you feel worse. Haven't seen that one yet. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts? Yeah.
I've asked this question before. Is there ever a point where you're actually helping too much, and by doing that, you are avoiding dealing with your own crap?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. Because if you think about what I'm actually saying, dealing with your own crap, when you recognize that there is no inherent self that has any crap to deal with, there is no crap. But as long as you're wrapped up in, oh, poor me, I need to take care of my crap. I don't mean you personally, but as long as one is wrapped up in like, oh, poor me, I have to deal with all my crap before I can help somebody else, you're actually giving rise to the thing the Buddha said is the cause of suffering, which is the sense of self and I and the ego. There is no crap. The crap is all just a story in your head. And if you take yourself out of that story in your head and you just live a life helping others, your crap's going to go away. I mean, let me finish this thought. Any emotion we have, whether it's sadness, depression, anger, whatever it is, if you don't change things, a guy in prison said this to me years ago, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. I thought it was so brilliant. It's so simple, but I just had never heard that before. And he shared after, he said, nothing changes if nothing changes. So whatever your emotion is, sadness, anger, depression, whatever it is, if you don't make changes in your life, it's not going to change. If we sit and constantly try to get wrapped up in, I'm so angry, I need to get out of my anger. Another book's not going to do it. Right? Another meditation isn't going to do it. You have to make changes in your life, not just more intellectual knowledge, not more, meditation. But when I think back to my practice and what helped me the most was when I first started, and I was like, like many of you who are brand new, and you're like, I'm all in, like this is it for me. Because suffering sucks, I don't want to suffer anymore. Right? I had to stop going. I went to the temple instead of going to a bar. I went to the temple instead of going to a baseball field. I went to a temple instead of, what other thing I would have done that led me to be around conditions. I stopped hanging out with the friends I was hanging out with. I drastically changed the places and people and things I was around. Because those were all the triggers and conditions. And when you begin to change those things, then you change. And then once the anger is basically gone, you go back to those places and people and things, but with a healthy mind and a healthy heart. But if you're, whatever emotion, anger, whatever it might be, if you don't make physical changes in your life, it's not going away. You got to make changes. And that's very hard for us sometimes. But I see, day in and day out, year after year, is people that come to things like this. And we talk about being peaceful and compassionate. We read about being peaceful and compassionate. And then we leave and we're like, oh, why am I still suffering? That sounded so great, the hour I was there. It's a lot of work. Think how hard we worked to build up so much anger and turmoil in our lives. Now just put in like half of that effort to putting some peace into your life and you'll see a difference.
Just another
additional perspective that I was thinking about, probably because of the work that I do. So I do see people who, this might be what you're talking about, who are maybe helping or not helping, but have like compulsive frenetic activity. Like I gotta do,
Right.
because if I stop, I'll be with what's here. And it's what I do with that. So I could go out and help, or I could sit with what is there,
Yeah.
not ruminate and engage with it, but sit with it and find out, as you said, that there's nothing to be avoided here, right? And I know you advise people not to read too much, but but there's a book called The Buddha's Way of Happiness by Thomas Bien, and there's a whole chapter in there that's called Doing Nothing for people who do frenetic compulsive activity, because they're afraid that if they sit down and do nothing, they might get in touch with what some of their experience is.
Right.
Whereas, so the admonition is to spend, one of the options is to help or engage in some productive activity, and to kind of be still and experience boredom or whatever is there, frustration or anger, and then be able to start the practice of releasing that instead of running in the other direction. I just think it's
great. Learning to be with these emotions as they arise is extremely critical. Definitely. Yeah, thank you. Just don't be with them too long.
Exactly.
That's my thing. It's like, I hear you on that. Like, be with it. But if the emotion is that anger, sadness, and depression, to sit with it for 3 hours and have it just like destroy you is,
2 minutes tops.
2 minutes, perfect. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah, I think there's a hand in the back. Oh, yeah.
Years ago, I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
I'm going to paraphrase this because my memory's but he said, the one thing, the last true freedom you have is you get to choose what you think. It's your mind. And I read that and I was, wow, really profound, but I kept on being me and thinking all these thoughts that I thought I didn't have any choice. And I read a story not too long ago about a woman a young wife, she's going about her morning things, and someone comes to the door, and her husband has died at work, and they come to tell her. And she's got these 3 kids, and she freaks, obviously. She takes to bed, can't get up, can't stop thinking about what am I gonna do? I don't know anything about our finances, our home, I've got 3 kids to raise, and she cannot get out of bed. And she's just in this horrible grief. And her sister comes in at one point and says, we've got to make some decisions, and we're gonna have a service. We're taking care of these things, but you need to figure out what you're gonna wear and stuff. And she goes into her closet and she goes, I don't have an effing black dress. God, I cannot believe I don't have an effing, now I'm gonna have to go shopping, I'm gonna have to, and for 5 minutes, she was completely out of the thoughts of grief and finances and kids and what am I gonna do, and thinking about this effing black dress she doesn't have. And she said she sat down on the side of the bed and said, I'm not gonna think about being alone and his death, that he's gone for my whole life. For that 5 minutes, there was like this light shining on her that she went, this is my mind, and there's gonna be times when and she did. She said at the funeral, she totally fell apart for many times after that. But that 5 minutes that she sat on her bed realizing that she was thinking about a black dress and not her husband being gone was a huge revelation to her that this is her mind, that this isn't just what's happening around her, it's her mind and what she gets to choose.
Yeah.
So taking that, when I get really involved in my, I can't believe that person hurt my feelings or pissed me off or anything like that, I go, guess what, this is my mind. I get to choose what I think.
Right.
I don't have to choose to think about that person who tried to hurt me or whatever. It's really hard. It doesn't most of the time, but.
Yeah, it's, and that kind of ties into my, response earlier, that's the purpose to me, one of the purposes of seated meditation is to begin to train the mind like any other muscle we strengthen. You know, the more you train the mind to come back to the present moment, the more you're able to direct your thoughts, to direct your feelings and emotions, and to allow them to kind of just arise and pass. You know, all emotions, all conditioned phenomena, as the Buddha taught, is impermanent. So everything comes together for a period of time and then ceases to exist. And our ability to recognize that on a day-to-day basis is really important. When you find yourselves in those moments of just despair or anger, whatever it might be, try not to get too wrapped up in it, because that will pass. You know, whatever you were angry about yesterday, by next week there'll be something else you're angry about. You know, so it's just going to keep cycling. Don't spend too much time there. Anything else before we wrap up? One more question. Yeah. Or thought.
So it's not a question.
Yeah.
So I experienced miscarriage once, and so before I miscarried, I signed up for a full marathon, started training, everything like physical exercise, and I think I can do that. I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to stop to do all the things I have done. And after I finished the marathon, but I decided to do the half because I think maybe I'm going to miss this little body, and I keep going, and I did that, and I got everything. And the day came, I had to check for my 12 weeks, and the baby is gone. So I feel like because of my fault, and I feel really bad, like sad, because I think that's why I'm happening. But then I feel like, no, it's not my fault. Just maybe something happened, and I feel better. I just keep going, and I now feel better. I'm not in pain. I just, when I'm sharing, I just feel dead. But now I feel great. My body gets stronger, and get over that. Just hard, but when you realize that you have something to do later on, you have a lot of things. You will have some trauma things happen next, and then you just keep going and be strong and just keep doing what you do. And
yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's I'll just kind of close with this thought: is that, you know, often things that have happened in the past to us, or things that have happened that maybe we, you know, done towards others, cause harm. There's this idea of blame and fault that I think we just get conditioned to want to put on ourselves or on others. And blame and fault and things like that don't change anything. And they just provide more pain, more suffering. And I heard somebody say this years ago around kind of Buddhist teachings that, you know, things happen. And, you know, we can psychologically play games and spin it as blame and fault and happen for good reason, or, you know, we can do all of that intellectually or psychologically to try to emotionally give us a sense of whatever we're searching for. But the truth is, things happen, and there's not always reasons, there's not always understandings, there's not always blame or fault. Things just happen, and some of them are extremely painful, and some of them are beautiful. And our entire life is filled with, you know, moments of just things happening that are really traumatic and painful, and things happening that are really wonderful and beautiful. And our ability to kind of really be resilient and to kind of keep the heart and mind open, I think is really important with this practice. You know, when I look at the heart of Buddhist teachings, it's open the mind, open the heart, not just towards others, but also towards ourselves. So, thanks for sharing. So we're going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Max during his time of suffering, and to Marilyn and their family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace.